This is a standard test result. The one you get should have most of the same information. In this section, the hows and whys aren't too important when you're first starting out, but the correct numbers and the percentages need to be in their ranges. Let's jump right in here and start with this cation exchange capacity, also known as CEC. Ions are atoms or molecules. Cations are positively charged ions, and what we're concerned with in this case are that calcium, magnesium, and potassium, among other minerals, are cations. What are positively charged ions attracted to? Negative ions, and they would be clay and humus. Once again, humus is the finished product of compost. So the positively charged calcium, magnesium, and potassium contained in the soil, plus what we add ourselves, are attracted to, absorbed, and exchanged with the negative clay and humus. Two positives don't attract to each other, nor do two negatives. The bottom line is, the higher the CEC number, the more chance for exchange. These minerals will then be absorbed by the soil particles at a higher capacity, hence available for the plant. A score of 10 is okay, 15 is good, and 20 would be real nice. Many times an organic matter reading between 4 and 6% in your soil test will result in a high CEC score, but it's not always the case. If your soil is very sandy, even higher percentage of organic matter would be necessary to achieve a high CEC score. An organic matter of 5 is great if your CEC score is, say, 18. If the score is low, what do we need to do? Adding clay certainly isn't practical. You add compost. Is compost a wonder drug for the soil? Yeah, I'd say so. What is CEC again? CEC is a soil's capacity to exchange and absorb certain important nutrients, and the higher the score, the better. You definitely want to have a score over 10. Once we put this all together, you'll have a better understanding of how this all works. The cations we just talked about, calcium, magnesium, and potassium, also need to be at a certain percentage in order to be fully effective as they're being exchanged. That brings us to a percent base saturation. Correct percentage should be calcium at 65 to 85%, magnesium at 10 to 15%, and potassium at 2 to 5%. This balance is important to achieving optimum grass growing conditions. Okay, let's move over to this section here. Your test should have a scale of low to very high for this list of phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. Once again, we bring the calcium and magnesium into play here. An optimum ratio for calcium to magnesium should be 7 to 1 or 8 to 1, as it should be in the percent base saturation. Just divide the amount of magnesium into the amount of calcium and you'll have your ratio. Alright, let's check out our pH score. First, pH is the measure of your soil's acidity. The pH scale is from 1 to 14, with 7 being neutral. Below 7 is acidic, and above is basic. Most turf grass like pH, say, depending on the varieties, 6.4 to 7, which is slightly acidic. Why is pH important? Most minerals availability to the grass plant is optimum right around a neutral pH, so you can see having the correct pH is critical. Another small little tidbit about pH is the more acidic, the more bacterial your soil. Alkaline, the more fungal dominated, but we'll get into that later. I've talked to so many people that would put down the recommended application rates their soil test would provide, and then the next year they would do another soil test and the pH would be either the same or even lower sometimes. The higher the organic matter and biology in the soil, the more effective your applications will be. Remember, good finished compost should have a pH right around 7, so if your test comes back in your pH of 5 or even 9, you're already beginning to level off the pH just by adding compost alone. The pH scale is measured in logarithms, so the difference between 1 and 2 points away from neutral is huge. Raising your pH level even 1 point can sometimes take a year, sometimes 2. The two most common additives to raise pH are calcitic lime and dolomitic lime. Both work very slowly but are effective. Dolomite also contains 28% magnesium. So this is where we go back to our percent base saturation level on the soil test to determine which one we're going to use. If just the calcium level is low and the magnesium levels are fine, we'll use calcitic lime. If both are low, we use dolomite. Remember, stay true to the 7 to 1 ratio of calcium to magnesium. If both minerals are in proper range and you still need to raise the pH, use one or the other and switch back and forth each time. Lime moves very slowly through the soil, and that's why you don't apply more than 50 pounds per 1,000 square feet at a time, because a pH in the first 2 inches of soil could be drastically different than that in 4 inches deep. Several small applications have much greater effect than applying all at once. Once again, soil texture comes into play here. Lime goes through sandy soil faster than clay, therefore it works quicker. Granular lime is easier to use than pulverized lime, but pulverized works quicker. Just make sure you don't use it when it's too windy out. As you can see, it goes everywhere. To lower the pH, use granular sulfur. If you need to lower the pH and your magnesium level and potassium levels are low, use sulfate of potassium magnesium. Cottonseed meals are also known to slowly lower basic soils. All of these products should be available in most agricultural or do-it-yourself chain stores. As you can see, most test facilities already give you the recommended application rates with their soil test. Just be aware of the calcium to magnesium ratio and the percent base saturation. If your pH is where you want it, but your calcium levels are low, use agricultural gypsum to raise it. Gypsum will loosen up compacted clay soils also. If only the magnesium levels are low, use Epsom salt to raise that. Try to plan accordingly when overseeding your lawn. As I've stated, adjusting the soil does take a while. I'm not saying don't move ahead with your project, but if you're in a cool zone and you know you're going to be renovating late summer, apply the material early spring if not sooner. In warmer areas, if you renovate early summer, try to make the recommended adjustments the previous fall. The test results will also come back with micronutrient levels. Usually having a good organic matter percentage will result in these levels being acceptable, and if the levels aren't where they should be, we'll change that when we add the compost later. A soil test is the toughest part of understanding your lawn, and it should be. It's its main food source. Having a soil test done every year for the first 3 years in late spring, you will see the levels gradually adjust to the correct ranges. Try to have the test done about the same time of year. You'll also see a dramatic improvement in your lawn. Once you're content with the outcome of the soil test, you can cut back to having your soil test done every 2 to 3 years.